After months of uncertainty between different networks showing which it would look like the project might be axed, Netflix swooped in to make sure America's live-action Death Note adaptation lived on. Whether you're a fan of the beloved anime or have just seen enough snippets to be intrigued, it was exciting to see the project moving forward. But even if you're a long-time Death Note fan, there might still be some things you don't know about the series. Regardless, if you read the manga and watched the anime, there's still some surprises hidden away in the story. Here are the 12 things you need to know about Death Note. Before we start, if you guys find this video interesting, please let us know, smash the like button, and if you enjoyed the content of our video playlist and want to see more, just click subscribe and don't forget the notification bell to get the latest updates. Number 12. The Netflix adaptation was for adults and R-rated. Something that should be a big relief to fans who might be worried about this adaptation of Death Note will be sanitized for American viewers is that the Netflix version will be an equivalent of an R-rated film. While the anime and manga are far from some HBO drama in terms of mature content, it's a story that frequently deals with characters dying, sometimes in gruesome fashion. One of the first major urges of the Death Note involves Light using it to help a girl, being harassed by writing her son's name in the notebook and having him be run over in the street. We absolutely don't want violence just for the sake of making things dark or shocking, but it's good to know that the show won't shy away and keep things close to the source material either. Death Note has a complex series of twists and turns as it plots unfolds, and it really is an anime that even people who aren't big fans of the genre can enjoy. Netflix has been well in creating more adult content through their versions of series like Daredevil, so it gave us hope that the adaptation of Death Note does the story justice. Number 11. This isn't Death Note's first live adaptation. Following up the manga and anime are probably already rare, but the American adaptation of Death Note won't actually be the first live action treatment the story received. Death Note already had not one, but 2 live action Japanese movies as well as a more recent live action TV series. But if you haven't heard about any of these other adaptations and were thinking of checking them out, you're probably better off skipping them. Most fans of the original story are in agreement that while Emma method to try and translate the story to her actors, the Japanese adaptations don't really hit the mark. With the movies, they were made around the same time as the anime and special effects, and they weren't really up to par, giving viewers a cartoonish looking CGI rig of following by around in story and distracting from the serious tone plot tries to achieve, whereas the Japanese TV series made significant deviations from the original plot that soured longtime fans on the short-lived adaptation. The American adaptation will no doubt help to make similar concessions in tracing the story over to the Western audience, but hopefully the changes make sense and lend to this being the first good live adaptation of Death Note. Number 10. There's a musical based on Death Note. Speaking of adaptations of Death Note, one adaptation that might surprise people is that it was actually turned into a musical back in 2016. While the anime does have a great soundtrack, transforming the story into a full-fledged musical this isn't the most obvious choice. Death Note doesn't exactly fit in where you imagine popular musicals like Cats or Rent. Surprisingly though, the show actually garnered some decent reviews in Japan's debut and was something people were excited for. While we're hoping the Netflix adaptation goes the route of a serious drama rather than having the showpiece numbers of Frozen, it's impressive to see what a popular franchise becomes to have so many iterations of the story. For fans who are hoping to catch Death Note as a musical at some point, there's no word on it coming to America right now, because the Japanese version are online to sample, and if the adaptation does well, it could very likely launch the story into mainstream American popularity and maybe convince Japan to take a chance of being the musical for English audiences. Number 9. Real-life school children have gotten in trouble for making Death Notes full of their classmates. Light Yagami is a high school student himself when he first found Ryuk's Death Note, and while school student doesn't have disagreement with their fellow classmates. Light initially contemplates testing a Death Note by eliminating a bully at his school, but he soon gets insights on bigger dangers to society. But for kids who are victimized day after day, it's understandable to fantasize about some way to end the harassment. Whether it was all good fun or perhaps a warning sign the adventure was necessary, there have been in fact school children in multiple countries who have made notebooks with the word in Death Note. Evidently, there were no decorative anime props to make these kids either, because they were filled with the names of people from schools of the kids. Obviously, that's the kind of thing that would be concerning for school administrators to find, and has led to any content in Death Note getting banned in countries like China, out of fear for the mental and physical safety of the children. Number 8. Ryuk was originally supposed to have a human appearance. It's hard to picture any of the Shigareen as human after seeing how monstrous all of them are, but apparently the original plan was for at least Ryuk to look somewhat ordinary. He was going to be human in appearance but also while having wings. The Shinigami were also supposed to be attractive looking. While there's no doubt there's someone out there who finds any attractive looking, the majority of Death Note fans probably weren't fantasizing about Ryuk in the fun design he got. The final product of the Shinigami are so hideous that most characters react while screaming attracted to the Shinigami when it's first revealed to them. That honestly seems like a pretty logical reaction, though it's funny to think the attractiveness angle of the Shigami was abandoned due to fear that they would overshadow the main characters. Light and L have no shortage of fans who remember by their looks, so it's hard to imagine Ryuk with how he looks now being competition for that spotlight. Number 7. The Shinigami have a king. The world of the Shigami is one of the most unexplored aspects of Death Note's story. Ryuk and his fellow gods of death are interested catalysts for the plot, but then fade into the background as the battle of wits between Light and L takes center stage. Honestly, if the entire story had taken place among the various Shigami, it probably would have gone really good in its own right and it's full of unanswered questions. What is the history of the gods of death, and why are they each given Death Notes to write in? While we don't know the answer to these questions, we know that Death Notes are distributed by a king in the Shigami world. He never appears in the main story of Death Note, but there are references to him and the other Shigami seem to respect his rules. One image that is available to depicts him as a giant spear of flesh suspended in the air of chains, with disproportionately small limbs dangling from his body. The closest really seen to the king exerting his power in the main series is through one of his right-hand men, the Bejeweled Ammonia, being one that Shigami should have supports to by his Dal's notebook. It shows that even in a world as seemingly devoid of life and structure, that is of the Shigami, they still have a hierarchy and a dynasty. Number 6. Nero and Mello were almost L's children in the story. After L's role in the story comes to an end, Light needed a new adversary to test his wits against. As the chessboard was reset for another game, Light wound up getting not one opponent but two. Millie and Neo were both younger and far less experienced than L, but had been groomed to take over their mentor when they came. When their relation to L nearly even was one, they seemed to be looking at a protective mastermind. In the early planning of Death Note, Nero and Mello were actually considered to be the children of L. In fact, had been revealed to be L's son, it probably wouldn't have been such a huge shock seeing as how they share L's taste of sweets, as well as compulsion for unusual postures and gestures. Maybe being a genius just leads to more eccentricities. Regardless, the decision would ultimately nixed when Death Note's creator realized that children L must have sex at some point, and it's just not really easy to picture someone as obsessive as analytical as L indulging in relations like that. L is a man who cares about solving puzzles in an all-compromising extent, even if he mismeeting those around him. So yeah, L likely lived his whole life as a genius version, and Nia and Mello were merely his protégés rather than his progeny. Number 5. There's a prequel novel about L. While people usually think of L's struggles with Light when they think of Death Note, L actually had a previous encounter with a killer that helped prepare him for his hunt against Kira. In the novel Death Note, another note, the Los Angeles BB murder cases, L was tasked with ending the killing spree of a man known as Beyond Birthday. BB was initially being considered to be a potential success for L in case anything happened to him, just like Nia and Mello are. But BB rather than shot the result of someone with a high level of intelligence just like L, electing to use bully to hurt people instead of help. BB is referenced in the main story of Death Note and even has ties to another character who appears in the manga anime, Naomi Mizora. Fans of the series probably remember that Naomi had a very small role in the series, but was also one of the first true tests for Light and his secret in his cure. In the novel, Naomi is actually a central character in the hunt to catch Beyond Birthday. While it's unlikely the novel will be incorporated in Netflix adaptation, it's still worth checking out to gain more insight in the backstory of some of the most prominent characters from the manga and anime. It helps demonstrate exactly why L is viewed as the greatest detective in the world, and what makes him so qualified to try and catch down Kira. Number 4. There have been real-life crimes inspired by Death Note. Some fans will always take things too far and express their enjoyment for dark subject matter in some unsettling ways. In addition, incidents of school children being disciplined for creating their own Death Notes mentioned earlier, there has actually been a crime involving murder that featured connection to Death Note. It was a Belgian murder case from around a decade ago that involved a mutilated body in the vicinity of the remains with several notes that spelled out, "Phase, I am Kira." Patish initially feared the killing was the beginning of a serial murder spree, but it wound up being contained to just one incident. The case took several years to solve, but eventually several suspects were apprehended and sentenced to prison for the crime. Obviously, one Death Note is nothing compared to what the Kira Death Note winds up doing. The fictional stories can be blamed for what crime killers perpetrate, but it's nonetheless pretty cool to think people would actually experience the death story of Death Note and view it as an inspiration for murder. Number 2. Light might become a Shigami in the afterlife. While the OVAs for Death Note are non-canon and mostly just a recap of what happened during the series, there are some new and interesting scenes included in them that should offer a bit more depth to characters. For Light, we already know from the main series that anyone who uses a notebook can never go to heaven or hell after they die. So if such places did exist, Light would never experience those afterlives. But that doesn't mean necessarily that Light wouldn't get to go to any afterlife. In Death Note Reallife, we're introduced to a Shigami that we didn't meet in the main anime. Based on the knowledge this Shigami has, as well as interactions with an old-looking Ryuk, fans of this series have long speculated that new Shigami is actually Light. Even if that was the case, it provides some valuable backstory about the Shigami realm, and could have possibly mean each god of death is someone from the human world who died after having used a notebook. It makes you wonder not only about whether the new Shigami is Light, but also who the other Shinigami could have been if they were actually all humans at one point. Number 1. Almost nothing is known about the creator of Death Note, much like L. Initially in Death Note, L is such a mysterious figure that people know almost nothing about him beyond the incredible work he does. Rumours swirl around him, and everyone has his own vision of who could possibly be behind the name. Until the person is eventually revealed, it's nothing like what anyone expected. Even after L is physically revealed, he still remains an enigma between his behaviour, his unspoken backstory, and his unusual mannerism that distract other characters with how little they actually know about the men they're working with. Shigami Oba, the writer behind Death Note, looks like he might share a lot in common with L. His private life is so closely guarded that no one even knows what gender he is. A lot of people refer to Oba, the male pronouns, due to the masculine name, but Oba is apparently just a pen name used for his career. Oba's strength is as reclusive as El initially is. The creator and character evidently even share a few traits. In the profiles over the manga, it's said that he is collector of teacups and also holds his knees on a chair while sitting, much like El is known to do. It's unclear how similar Oba actually is to his character and how much of what it is said to more this direction, but obviously, Oba knows how to create intrigue in real life as well as his work. Death Note was indeed an awesome anime, especially the first half. The anime is loved by many around the world and a contender for one of the best animes of all time. Did you know any of these facts watching this video? What facts you missed that should be included? Let us know down in the comments. If you want to give your family a surprise gift for any special occasion, you can always check our website and look for creative and novel gifts. This has been Music Chess, Shinigami signing out.